Yeah, Connor, how have things gone so far for you guys in the offensive line through spring practice?
I think it's been going pretty good. I think we've been making a lot of improvements so far throughout the season. I mean, I think we got a lot of guys that are returning that have, played some games for us. But as it goes on, I think we're getting better each day, and I'm looking forward to the next 3 practices this week.
First of all, how's the connection been with your new offensive coordinator?
Yeah, Coach Chronic he's phenomenal. I mean, his whole staff that he brought with him, Coach G, is phenomenal as well. I think it's a really good, positive growth mindset they have. And overall, I think I love what we're seeing. I love what we're doing. I think it's going to be a great year.
And you talk about Coach G, watching him in practice, he seems real fiery, but also he really looks like that he's looking to make you guys better.
100%. I mean, he's definitely brings a crazy mindset to the beginning of practice and throughout the whole practice. But I mean, we love it. We love him. He's been great so far to us. He's been helping us learn. We've been getting a ton better because of him. And I think, morale is really high. I mean, he definitely gets after us, but I think, at the end of the day, we know that he loves us and we love him. So it's been great so far with him.
Thanks.
Wags.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you great.
Yes, sir.
So, Connor, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about Coach Guillermo. I mean, he is a very demonstrative, and he'll get in your face. I've seen him barking at guys. You all don't mind being coached hard?
I mean, we've all been getting coached hard our entire time here at the academy. I mean, it's probably a little bit different for the younger guys because they're still getting used to this process. But I mean, I've been getting chewed out my entire life playing football, and it's nothing new. And we all know that he cares about us. So I mean, we don't enjoy it, but at the end of the day, it's like we're here to get better. We're here, and that's his way of making us better. So I'm not opposed to it at all.
How would you describe his coaching style? And I mean, he's a guy with a real impressive pedigree, having played for a national championship team at Clemson.
Yeah, it definitely helps that he's somewhat similar in age with us. So he kind of gets us a little bit more than like an older coach, I'd say. He definitely brings a lot of humor, which we definitely appreciate. Brings a little bit of laughter into our days. And he's just very approachable. He listens pretty well, and he's just very easy to get along with while also getting on our ass, all the time. So it's a good little connection we have with him.
So has it been an interesting adjustment because you had the same coaches for 3 years previous, and now here's a new coach with some new ideas, some new, philosophies, etc.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. I didn't really know what to do going into this year since we lost Coach Ingram, who I was very close with. But so far it's been great. It's been a new offense for us seniors every year during spring ball, so it's just constantly learning a new offense each year. But I definitely like what we're doing. It's definitely new technique for me, which I have to focus a lot, watch a lot of film. But I think, like I said, each day we're getting better. We're getting better at the footwork. We're getting better with our hands. So it's going good so far.
So on that note, can you kind of tell us what's different with the new offense as compared to the triple option? How does it change for the offensive lineman, in particular, you at the tackle position?
Yeah, so we're doing a lot of inside zone stuff. Just the footwork's totally different than last year, which is something I've been struggling with just because of all the reps I got last year from it. We have a different stance, which is getting used to. We have a different hand down. We're passing the ball a ton still, but it's just it's a lot of different footwork, just different. It's a totally different style, but we're still doing all the triple option stuff that we know and love, just with the little touches of different things.
So do you feel the responsibility to become more of a leader of the unit since you've been around and have been playing for quite a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely been trying to step up a lot, especially in the O-line group. I'm trying to, spread out my leadership throughout the rest of the team as well. But just, helping these young guys. I mean, I'm trying to be like a third coach out there, just helping all these younger guys develop their skills as well when I'm gone next year. But yeah, just trying to motivate people and, bring a positive attitude each day.
Who are maybe some younger players who you think have really developed quite a bit during the spring and maybe will be in the mix next year?
I think the main guy that comes to my head first, he got a little bit of playing time last year as a plebe, is definitely Hoke Smith. I think he'll definitely be a huge player for us this year. You got guys like Cam Nichols. He's definitely getting the rotation. Isaac Bunker. the three guys that come to my head first as the young guys. And then we're just developing the rest of the guys as well. It's still, they don't really know what it takes yet to be a starting Navy O lineman yet. But they're slowly figuring it out, and they keep getting better each day.
What about a guy like Trey Cummings? I mean, he's a younger guy who's played a little bit, and that's somebody you got to kind of take under your wing and help him learn the tackle position.
Yeah, he's doing real good right now during spring ball. He got plenty of snaps last year. So me and him are always, working with each other. We're correcting each other when we make mistakes. But yeah, I look forward to playing with him this year. It's gonna be a good time.
How you doing with Coach Larndine?
Yeah, he brings a nice, funny, relaxing vibe to the group. He's not as crazy as Coach G, but he works a lot with us tackles. But yeah, it's definitely a really good combination. And we can talk to either one of them anytime we want about anything.
So I think I saw that Coach G had you guys over to dinner at his house. Is that correct?
Yeah, he had most of us over for a nice little dinner. I was unable to make it, but I plan on making the next ones. It was just unlucky timing, but I heard the meal was phenomenal. So,
but does that kind of show he wants to connect with you guys on a personal level off the field? Not in the football scenario, atmosphere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he even had some players over for Easter, and I know that's like a family time only. So that just shows you how much he cares about some guys. And he plans on having us over more. I know last year really didn't get to do a lot of the stuff together off the field. But this year, I mean, he really shows that he truly does care about us, which we definitely appreciate as an O-line.
I see Pete's on, so I'll pass the torch.
Wags, Trey is a rising senior, believe it or not. He's not a young guy anymore. Pete, Matt Hurst.
Connor, I know for an experienced offensive lineman, there's only so many techniques you can learn, only so many ways you can learn how to block. But having different voices again, as a lineman, does that really make that big of a difference, having another voice in your ear for a third consecutive season?
I think this spring ball is probably the easiest for me because I've gone through this 2 times already. So I kind of I'm used to change. But at the end of the day, I know how to move people. I know how to block people. It's just how I do it. So I don't think it's as big of a change as it is for some of the younger guys, I'd say. But I don't really mind the change a year. I mean, it's been great all 3 years. And yeah, like I said, I just keep looking forward to getting better each year.
Outside of maybe some subtleties, with obviously another install coming offensively, are you being asked to do anything drastically different than what you've been asked to do before?
No, not really. I mean, a lot of the stuff is very similar to last year. I mean, it's, a lot of zone stuff, which was new to us last year, which kind of carried over this year. The pass, still getting used to all the passing stuff. Because we're coming more of a, more of a pass offense each year. So just practicing all the pass blocking. But yeah, no, really very similar to what I've just, we're just a aggressive, move people off the ball kind of offense. And that hasn't changed for me, my time here.
Obviously, it's been a very short time, but what have you liked about having Coach Guillermo, Coach Larndine on an everyday basis here so far to kind of get a preview of what it's going to be like every day in the fall?
I'm honestly having probably the most fun I've had playing football with them as my coaches. I think, like I said, Coach G brings a lot of humor to our meetings, which I definitely appreciate. It brings that more fun aspect to the meeting, while he also, corrects us in a very harsh manner. But it's definitely fun out there. I think a lot of the other guys are having fun as well. But I think it's going to be a great year. I think the morale is really high right now, and everybody can see the potential we have this year.
I was going to say, you play, so you know it better than anybody. You guys weren't very far away from having a completely different record and a much more positive record than last year. But what are the things that you guys need to clean up to be more consistent at to help you achieve the goals that you guys obviously set out?
I think one of our biggest problems last year was penalties. So just working on that whole discipline factor of the team, it will probably go a very long way if we just, become the number 1 least penalized team in the country. Will go a long way. But just, consistency in general is probably our biggest problem last year, as we had a lot of young guys playing. on offense. But like I said, a lot of returning players. So hopefully we just are more consistent each play. We don't mess up our footwork. We know who we're going to each play. And we'll keep those long drives, keep us on the field, keep our defense off the field. And it'll put us in a much better position to win this year.
Glad we got a chance to talk to you, because I don't know if people, that unless they pay really close attention, don't realize what you persevered through last year. There were times where you could have just said, "Hey, man, I gotta sit," but yet the competitor in you wouldn't let you do that. What was that like, though, to play through all of that, trying to be there for your brothers as much as you possibly could, when there are a lot of people that might have said, "Hey, I gotta sit out, coach. I can't give you 80%, 75%." And I'm not sure at times you had 60% to give, but you were giving it out there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, my ankles were very, very bad by the end of the season. I'm still having, my ankles probably still aren't the same because of last season. Just a lot of my body was hurting for the majority of the season. But, I definitely played for my brothers. There's one point, the part that I remember the most was, I went down again for my ankles, and then Sam Glover, the next play, went down, dislocated his shoulder, and I had one play to, figure my stuff out, go out in the field. And I think a lot of the guys appreciated it. And I appreciate it because, a lot of them are playing through injuries as well. So it's not like it's just me. But I think, we all love each other. We all want what's best for the team. It's just, that's how I was raised, honestly. Just, if you can walk and you can run, you can play, just give everything you've got. And I think a lot of guys are bringing that to the table as well this year. So I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
All right, we'll go back to Scott Wyckoff.
What was your biggest takeaway personally from what you learned last year that will make you a better player this season as a senior?
Yeah, I honestly think what I learned last year is, I can go through a ton of adversity, and we can work our butts off, even if we don't win. I know that if I can get through a season like last year where, it just didn't go exactly how I expected it to go. I think I can bring a much more positive attitude this year and just spread, positive attitude to the rest of my teammates and just, try to lead more. But yeah, I think, just no matter what happens, I think I'll just have a much more positive attitude this year, especially as a senior and a leader in the O-line group.
And you've had a full year of Coach Newberry, not only as your seasonal coach, but through the off season and through the spring. What's your impression? What's your biggest takeaway from the vibe that Coach Newberry has?
I think it's like almost like a father figure. He's always, sitting in the background watching us. He gets involved when he has to. He'll let you know when he's disappointed in you, or when he's proud of you. So there's a couple points where he'll say really good job, or he'll get on my ass as well. But we love having him. He's phenomenal at his job. And yeah, I like what he did hiring these new coaches. I think he did great with the hires this year. But yeah, I look forward to, seeing what else he brings to the table this year. So.
And what does it say to you that a coach like your new offensive coordinator, who was so successful as a head coach, who was running a program and doing so well, said, "Hey, I've got an opportunity to coach these guys," and he's there doing it now?
I mean, I think it's awesome that he left he was very successful at his previous job, and that, he wanted to come coach here. I mean, a lot of them say that this is their dream job. But you can definitely tell Coach Cronick, this is one of his, dream jobs. He comes to work every day and he tries to get us better each day. So we definitely appreciate, we love having him here as well. But yeah, just like I said, the whole new staff is phenomenal for us on offense.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Wags.
So what do you think of the new offense, Connor? I mean, I was out there last week and saw the offense hit a bunch of really big plays. It was impressive.
Yeah, I mean, this spring ball, we've been scoring on the defense. I mean, it's not like our defense isn't, doing what they're supposed to do. It's a lot of guys are making plays. I talked to the guys in the locker room, like, what the heck are you guys doing? Like, how are you guys moving like this? You guys are giving us some crazy looks that we haven't seen before. So I think, I love that it's confusing our defense, and our defense was, really good last year, 3 shutouts. So it's really positive to hear these things in the locker room when you hear some of our really good defensive players saying these things. And I can't imagine what other defensive coordinators are going to go through as this year progresses.
Yeah, that's what I saw last week. I mean, there's some plays where it's very the misdirection, and you think one thing's happening, and then all of a sudden it's a pass down the seam, and it's it did catch the defense by surprise a little bit. And I saw those guys talking amongst themselves like, hey, how did that happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I love scoring on the defense, because there was a point, my plebe year, sophomore year, where, the offense really wasn't scoring much at all during spring ball. It was a lot of defense was shutting down the offense every time. But now, it's a back and forth battle each day as we come to work. And it's definitely a lot more enjoyable for us when we're scoring.
So as we get here toward the end of spring, do you feel like you all understand this offense and can execute it, or is there still a long way to go come fall camp?
I mean, obviously there's still a long way to go as we're still installing all our new plays. But I think a lot of the older guys, the seniors like Javon, Brent and Trey, even Ben Purvis, I think our starting 5 right now, I think we all have a pretty solid grasp of what it looks like. We're putting a lot of time in off the field as well to kind of figure out what's all going on. But, obviously during fall camp, we'll get everything hopefully perfect at that point. But, the younger guys are developing. That's expected for a young guy. But, I love where our offensive line is right now.
And you had mentioned, I mean, obviously injuries do happen. Do you feel good about the depth you're developing along the line? You feel like you got some solid second line guys?
Yeah, I think our second team's pretty solid for tackle. I mean, we have Mike Whitehouse and Creedon, who are some of my best friends on the team, and they're stepping up to the plate this year. And then you got, Grayson Crawford. He's going to be a key player as well in the rotation. You got Cam Nichols at center, and just a couple guys, like I said, Hoke Smith as well. They definitely are some key depth players for us. If someone goes down, they can definitely step up and, perform at a level that we've been performing. So yeah, I think we're much better at depth this year. I would agree with that.
What's it been like so far, Coach, with this offensive line as you've worked with them almost 3/4 of the way now through spring practice?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. A lot of really good guys and good athletes. I think the big thing for me is those guys show up ready to work every day. There's not been a lot of coaching effort because I haven't had to do it. I'll do it if I need to, but and that's something that's shows a lot of promise in an offensive line unit because they are what runs a team, right? That's the team's going to go as offensive line unit goes. And number one, non-negotiables effort. So it's been a lot of fun. A lot of different philosophical differences, especially in techniques of what we're doing just within our new offense. And I think they've come along to it and they care about it. So it's been a ton of fun.
How would you describe the different techniques that you and Coach Cronick bring in this new offense that you're evolving with the Naval Academy in this style of player on the offensive line?
Yeah, I think it even just starts with stance, right? Like their stance is a little bit more balanced, knowing that we're not an air raid football team, but we're going to have to get into some drop back pass situations. So I think just even with your stance, it changes, and even in the run game, you're still coming off the football, right? We're still firing off the ball. We're still going to play violent, but just, not as forward leaning. We're going to use our hands a little bit. Going to drive people up rather than down. Just subtle differences that make a big difference, right? It's the little things that kind of all compound into a big thing. So I think it's just a lot of different techniques of being able to sustain blocks a little bit longer, knowing where the ball's being handed off. Are we under center? Are we in the gun? A lot of different things that changes your techniques, and a lot of those things that, are different for them take time. And so it's just subtle differences.
What is it that you like best about this offense from terms of being an offensive line coach in the system that Coach Cronick has brought?
For one, it is still a very much run game. Like, we're going to run the football, right? And so that always excites an offensive line coach. Being able to get into Indy, have the intensity that you need, for those guys just to be able to roll off the ball and move people. I think that's number one. And number two, I think is just how multiple we're going to be, having answers for different things that defenses are doing. I think that's what can be a challenge, but is also a lot of fun for me, is trying to piece it all together and saying, okay, we're not just going to be, in the gun. We're not just going to be under center. We're not just going to be this or that. It's trying to piece it all together. So I think, for one, the physicality of the nature of what our offense is going to be is a ton of fun just from what it is. And that's the kind of football that I like, right? I'm a football purist in that aspect. And two, it's the mental aspect to it, to just kind of piecing it all together.
What does it mean to you to have this opportunity to be the offensive line coach at the Naval Academy?
This is a dream job. I mean, and the fact that, obviously I'm young, and I'm able to be here at this point in my career is really special to me, and something that I don't take lightly. I growing up, especially, not just being a coach here, but being the offensive line coach at the Naval Academy, like, you get to work with the baddest dudes in the world, right? Like, you do the hardest job at a hard place for other people, right? Like, I'm working with the baddest dudes in the country. If you're an offensive lineman at the Naval Academy, you're just built different. You're different. And so I think just from that aspect, it's a dream job for me. And two, just being here at Navy and the just history of this place is so special to me. And something that, like I said, I don't take for granted. I don't take lightly. It's driving into work every day. I almost have to pinch myself, just, man, wake up. You're in a dream. Like this, you're the offensive line coach at the Naval Academy. So it's special to me, and something that I'm extremely appreciative of Coach Cronick and Coach Newberry for allowing me to be here and be who I am at such a special place.
And who's had the biggest impression on you as a coach, as you've come up as a player and now as a head offensive line coach?
Yeah, I don't think I could just say one. I've been extremely fortunate to be coached by really good coaches, just even in high school to college. High school, coming up with George Corals, one of the most successful high school coaches ever, especially in the state of Tennessee. But him, my offensive line coach, Robbie Caldwell, I have been told that I coach a lot like him. Did it for a long time. Old school, hard-nosed kind of guy, but knows how to love his players. And then, Sean Elliott, the guy that gave me my first job, a guy that really showed me how to take the mentality from playing and putting it over to coaching, right? You don't have to be someone different. You want your players to mirror the intensity that you have for the game. And so you coach that way. So Thomas Austin, guy that I worked for at Georgia State, that I GA'd for, I don't think I could just say one. My grandfather was a high school coach for a long time. And he's, one of the biggest influences just in my life outside of football. I mean, there's a lot of different people, and I've been very fortunate to have a lot of different people that have poured into me and cared about me as a person and as a player, and then as a coach, and allowed me to be myself.
Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you, Scott.
Wags.
Coach, I don't believe that you have coached in either a wing T or triple option offense before. How much learning was there for you coming in here to learn exactly what Coach Cronick is looking for out of the offensive line, the techniques and schemes?
Well, whenever I went to Carson Newman as offensive line coach, kind of coming out of the split veer offense, I'd really gotten to learn a lot of the triple option from that. So that helped me, and we kind of evolved into a gun, two back zone option team. But whenever I got there, it was under center, split back veer. And so that experience has helped me a lot. Just being able to get the basics down of what we're doing from an option standpoint, and then kind of grow from there. And I think, football is football. A down block's a down block. I think it's learning some of the nuances within why things fit together and how they fit together, which Coach Cronick, to our players and to everyone on the staff, I think has done a phenomenal job of explaining the why and not just saying, hey, this is what we call this and this is what we're going to run. It's how everything ties in together within his system. So, to me, it's not been a huge learning curve because, football is football and offensive line play is offensive line play. But I think for me, it's just kind of been doing what I know and kind of growing from there.
Coach Cronick thought that the most difficulty in terms of the learning curve is for the linemen as opposed to the skilled position players. What is it? What have you had to teach these guys to transition them to maybe what they were doing before in the triple option system to now?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like I was hitting on earlier is the difference in techniques. And getting into some zone world and things like that, there's a lot of, well, if this, then this. And it's learning those small nuances. And fortunately, with the looks that we see with our defense and things like that pose problems for a lot of people, we're getting to see a lot of different looks and getting to go through that. And which is really fortunate for me because you're not just seeing a stagnant defense where you block a under defense every play and then we get into the season, oh my goodness, they're lining up everywhere. How are we going to be able to handle this? Something that I dealt with as a player, with Brent Venables, it's day one, gut X, here we go. Good luck, And so I think for those guys it's learning a lot of the different techniques because it's with offensive line play, in my personal opinion, is technique over scheme 100% of the time. They will learn scheme as you go. And scheme is important. I'm not trying to underplay it. It is. But with offensive line play, a misstep, a false step, stepping backwards whenever you're supposed to be taking a 6-inch step up the field, those things are the small nuances that can kill a play. And so I think a lot of the learning curve is within techniques, not necessarily the actual schematics of what we're doing.
So, I've been out of practice and watched you. You're very demonstrative, in your face. You coach them hard. Can you kind of talk about your coaching style? And I don't know. Connor McMahon was just on and said they've been coached hard their whole careers, but you bring a little bit different to the table.
Yeah, I think once again, I want them to display the same intensity that I have and that I had playing, and so I think you have to do that as a coach. And really stress them during practice. Whenever Coach G's breathing down your neck, there's a stressor on you because you don't have 50,000 people in the stands. You don't have a bunch of people watching you in practice, and so it's being able to stress them throughout the week to where whenever we come out on Saturdays, I don't have to do that. And I think it's getting guys to a point where I don't have to do that anyways. I'm always going to be intense and all of that. But, I think there's a time and a place for everything. And, knowing when to really press and when to push, knowing when to back off, knowing the guys that you do and don't have to do that to, knowing how to coach people different. And so I think, being loud, being intense, trying to stress the guys as much as I can, having a sense of urgency from myself and them knowing that, it's not hey, this is kumbaya, we'll get it done tomorrow. It's we need to do well now so we can move forward. And so that's kind of my coaching approach, but you can't be that all the time. And for me, you stress those guys on the field whenever we're in the meeting room. That's my classroom, right? Because football, you don't just grow up and know what a scoop is. You don't grow up and know how to get into combinations. You don't grow up and know how to block inside zone. You're really teaching a foreign language is what you're doing. And so, with those guys, whenever we're in the meeting rooms, that's the time you pull back and you say, okay, who has questions? And if a kid asks the questions and I may have just answered that question, but it didn't make sense to him. Well, if he doesn't understand it, that's my fault because I'm the teacher and I have to learn how to teach them in different ways to where they understand it. So I think there's a time and a place. I don't think that you can just be that, 4th and 1 mentality all the time. There's they got to know that you love them, and you got to love them. It's not anything fake and, oh yeah, I love you guys, but I never see you outside of practice or outside of the facility. That's why I think it's important for me to have a relationship, and they know that I care for them. I may be hard on them, but I care for them, because it's the end of the day, football goes so much with life is, you're doing hard things for other people, especially in the offensive line room, and trying to teach them, how to be a good person and how to get through hard things whenever you don't want to, whenever you don't feel like it. Because I tell my guys all the time, I come in here and I work and I go home and it's late, and first thing I walk into the door and my daughter's sprinting up to the door, and she gives me a hug and she grabs me by the hand and says, "Daddy, let's go play." Well, first thing I want to do, this may sound bad, I want to go sit on the couch and be a potato, and I'm tired, and that's hard. Right. And so through the game of ball is trying to teach them also, hey, we're learning football here, but these are the things that are going to translate into life. So I think it's a holistic approach of showing them what different things look like on the field and off the field, and being hard on them whenever I need to be, and hell, giving them a hug whenever I need to, because that's important.
Well, first of all, I failed to introduce myself. I'm Bill Wagner with the Baltimore Sun and Capital Gazette newspapers, so I apologize on not following the directions. Lastly, for me, along the lines of what you were just saying, I understand you've had a lot of the linemen over to your house for a dinner, or Connor said you had some over for Easter. It sounds like you are trying to build a relationship outside of football.
Absolutely. And, that's what I had from my coaches. That's what I've been around. I've been around guys that coach people harder than I coach, which is, if you've seen me, Bill, then that's hard to believe at times. But, once again, they know that you care about them. They know that you're not just screaming just to scream or anything like that. You're not just being a pure T butthole just to be a butthole. They'll play for you. And that's the number one most important thing as a coach is, will your guys play for you and for their teammates? And it's, fostering that culture in your room. And so from that, I think you need to have them around your family, because I'm around those guys as much as I'm around my wife and my children. And I see them as my family. And I want them to know that it's not just something that we say, because everyone, even through recruiting, and whenever people are here, everyone talks about family, right? Everybody breaks it down on family. Everybody says, oh, here, this is a family atmosphere. Unfortunately, that has just become a recruiting tool and a recruiting catchphrase for a lot of people. And not everyone shows it. And it's very important to me to be who I am, but to be a man of my word also. And so if I tell you I love you, hell, I'm going to show you that I love you. And if I tell you that you're family, you're my family, and I need to show you that. And so I think that's extremely important. Just the building that culture in our room, and building trust between me and the players to me and them to each other. It's just as much for those guys getting around each other in one setting as it is me getting around them and them getting around me and my family. So there's a lot of different things that go into it, but I think that is an extremely important piece to building a good culture within your room.
Go.
Hey, Coach. Joe Miller, Navy Radio Network. You talked about implementing the techniques and sort of putting that in during this time period. Are there certain markers, or is there a timeline that you want to have established here in spring, so when you get to fall, it's not sort of a repetitive nature? Are there certain markers you want to get to?
Absolutely. I mean, the springtime, and it's a little bit different coming in with a new offensive staff, trying to install a new system. But spring to me is a time for development within your techniques, right? It's a developmental period. And so for us, trying to install what we need to do, really just trying to get the base 101 of our offense and of what we're doing. I don't know if you can put an exact, hey, I want to see them do this and this and this. It's just kind of a whole scale mastering the base techniques of what we're asking them to do. And I think they've done a good job at that. I really do. I know from day one to now, it is, I mean, they look different, in a good way. And so it's just mastering the basics, kind of the 101 level. So then whenever we get into the summer, we can kind of refresh on that, go through that a little bit, not having to harp on it every day. So then we can get to the 201, 301, 401 levels of what we're trying to do.
You touched on it a little bit earlier about sort of surprised at how athletic some of the guys were. How important is that in this style, in this offense? We don't, oftentimes we don't talk about athleticism when it comes to offensive lines, but obviously that's an important asset that you can have. How is important and what you're trying to do and accomplish on the offensive side of the field?
Yeah, extremely. I think athleticism is one of the main things I look for in an offensive lineman because, obviously guys that are here, they're big, they're strong and all of that. But, especially you think of guards, especially back in the 90s where they were just some big fat dude, can't play that way because the defensive lineman, you don't have big 350-pound dudes as much. You still got some, but not as much. So, I think for what our guys are going to do, we're going to, a lot of guys are going to be asked to pull. A lot of guys are going to be asked to reach. There's still some athleticism that has to be there from being able to come off the ball and veer and things like that. So to me, that's a pretty large piece of what we're going to do to be able to do everything that we want to. Right now, we're not going to fit a square peg in a round hole. We're going to get together after spring, kind of come together and say, what do we do best? Right. But I think if we can really get that and see that out of our guys, which we have, that'll be able to open up what we want to do offensively.
I know sometimes people have preconceived notions about the Naval Academy and the players and the people around here. What has there been anything that's kind of surprised you or sort of, when you look at the players, when you look at just what they have to do on a day-to-day basis, has there been anything that's surprised you in your short time here?
Yeah, there's been a lot, because there is a lot of preconceived notion of what this place is. Knowing a little bit about the Naval Academy. One of the first questions I asked with all transparency here was, when do they wake up and run PT? I thought that, they woke up and ran 4 miles a day. That's just what I assumed, right? And I learned that is not it, but there's a lot of different things, that you learn as you're here that you thought it was one way and it's not. And, to me, I don't know with the guys, because you think of Navy, you think of tough guys, you think of smart guys, you think of disciplined football players. And I think that's what we have. I think there's a little bit more size than I probably expected, and a little bit more strength and things in that, just in weight room numbers where guys have really come along. But for them, you learn a ton about this place, just the day-to-day operation of what they have to do. So I could go on and on for 30 minutes about things I've learned, but it's different. And this place is hard. It is. And we don't shy away from that. And I don't think our kids shy away from that. And that's how you got a special team and a special group, is because they thrive in that.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Pete.
Welcome, Coach. Pete Madhurst, play-by-play man. I work with Joe on the Navy Radio Network. Navy's a developmental program. I fully admit that. You played for one of the few coaches at the elite level that still kind of appreciates that mindset and develops football players. But as you pull from a Coach Sweeney, a Jeff Scott, a Tony Elliott, a Robbie Caldwell, as you developed, your coaching style now here as you get going, how much of their influence is there? But at the same time, how much do you have to guard against trying to be a Coach Sweeney, a Tony Elliott, a Robbie Caldwell, and be your own guy coaching your men right now?
Yeah, it's I'll probably pull from Coach Caldwell the most. The previous job, I was told that I sounded exactly like him on the field. It's just, maybe it might just be the Southern drawl, but I think I'm pretty secure in who I am, and know that. And that was something that I learned whenever I started coaching, was just go be you and be who you are. So I don't feel like I struggle with that too much. You take a lot from those guys and you learn a lot. You learn what you like and what you don't like. But I think it's just being you, and because if you're genuine, the kids are going to see that. And if you're trying to be somebody that you're not, the kids are going to see that too. And so for me, it's not something that I struggle with too much, because I know who I am. I know what I believe. I've taken the time to kind of plan all of that out and write it down. And what are my philosophies? I've got my coaching philosophies and what I believe in recruiting and just day-to-day operation and how our unit's going to be, how our Indy's going to look. I've got all that out in a PowerPoint. And that was one of the most helpful things I've ever done, because there's a lot of things that you take for granted or that you assume. Right. And so I think doing that, which I was advised by Thomas Austin, guy was offensive line coach at Georgia State, was the GA while I was playing. He said, man, take the time to put all that down on paper. And he said, I promise it'll be harder than you think. And it was. And so I think from that, I've kind of built a brand of myself, maybe pulling off of other people, but building who I am as a coach. So it's not been too difficult, but for sure you take things you've learned from everyone and you run with it and craft that into what you feel like works for you.
What sparked the want to coach following your post playing career?
My grandfather. My grandfather, Ron Green, was the head coach at Burns High School in Lawndale, North Carolina for 27 years. And, he's a huge figure in my life. Just because my mother and I lived with him whenever I was lived with him whenever I was a kid. And, being around him, being on the sidelines, I knew that football was something that I wanted to do. Now, as a child, I didn't understand the impact that you could make on other people's lives. And then going from that and seeing what he did, would have guys over to his house and, help him, with a little bit of money, they'd come work at his house and, he had a bunch of landscaping and they'd help him do that. And he'd pay him a little bit of money, just to help him out for kids that needed it. And it's all for service for other people. And so he kind of showed me that. And then, being at Maryville with Coach Quarles and being at Clemson with Coach Sweeney, being, like I said, Tony Elliott, and being there at Virginia with him, like everything's about service. And so, really getting into coaching, I kind of saw that. And then once I got into it, it really opened the door for me of why I do it. The number one reason I do it is to help other people like I was helped. There was a time and place where I was lost, and my coaches helped me get me out of that. Right. They didn't care about football. It wasn't about Jay Guillermo, number 57, playing center. It was Jay Guillermo, the human being that walks in that building every day. And so that for me, he was kind of the spark to that. But then once again, I was very fortunate to have people in my life to kind of help me show why you need to do what you do. Because if you coach for money or for fame or anything like that, it's not going to last, and it's not genuine. I think you do this to help other people through life,